Live. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Bunker Office Hours, a weekly live show brought to you by the team at Bunker Labs, a national network of veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs dedicated to helping the military connected community start their own business. We know that 25% of transitioning service members want to start a business, and they need places inside their community where they can connect with the people, resources, and support they need. I'm your host today, Iron Mike Stedman, joined by my colleague, Carrie Sue. What's going on, Carrie?
Hey, how are you? Good to be on.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to come on here and engage the community. This is just a great platform, be able to share a lot of knowledge and insight. And I'm super fired up today because we get to talk about something I'm passionate about, which is brand strategy. But before we do that, we do have a quick announcement. And I want to talk about veteran and residence applications, which are going live on September 1st. So, Carrie, can you shed a little bit of light on what people can expect as they apply?
Yeah, so we have the application window open for a full month this time. So you do have some time to kind of review the information that we need from you and then go ahead and apply. We've got 2 cohorts a year. One starts in January and one starts in July. So this application window is for the January 2022 cohort. We've got VIR physical locations in about 20 cities across the US. And then we have a couple virtual programs as well, virtual cohorts as well, for those that are either not in cities where we have a physical presence, or, you know, it's just more convenient for you to join the virtual group as opposed to the in-person group. It is a 6-month long program. We will have a pitch competition, and then we've got a kind of a kickoff and ending celebration that goes with each of the cohorts as well. So come September 1st, the link that you see on the screen now will be live to go ahead and apply. If you want to join the wait list now, you can. There's a button there, and then go ahead and apply September 1st. But yeah, we'll talk more about like kind of what's needed from individuals and kind of what they get out of it as this live goes on.
Yeah, one of the things I want to say too is I've on the outside looking in, right? I've had a chance to judge the veteran and residence pitch competitions. I've gone through the veteran residence cohort. I've selected applications for it. And so I know sometimes people can wonder is like, okay, how can we prepare for this? Because unfortunately, we can't select everyone. But I have seen a lot of trends. You know, one of the things that me and Carrie were talking about of, you know, displaying confidence. How can you display confidence to the selection committee that you're a good fit for the veterans and residents? And so what are some tricks? You know, making sure you have a website, making sure your LOC is up to date, having some kind of traction within your business model, you know, getting some paid clients on the books, like all these really simple, basic things. And unfortunately, you know, when we're going through some of these applications and stuff, a lot of people just aren't there yet. And
Right.
So they're not going to be able to get the most out of the program as they would if they had a little bit more traction. And so there are programs within Bunker Labs to help you get that traction. Launch Lab Online, you know, we've got the blogs, we've got the podcast. So there is support there. And then in addition to that, we're going to have another Q&A, I believe, where we'll be able to do a little bit of a deep dive.
Yeah, we've also got, especially for more of the financial side of starting your business, we've got one program by USAA that is on our Bunker Online. It's a course that you can take to kind of walk you through setting up your finances and all that sort of stuff to get the business where it needs to be as well. So that might be a good course for individuals that might be struggling in that area of how to set up your entity, what it should look like, and then proceeding forward with getting that set up.
Yeah, and make sure y'all are reaching out to these veterans you see on LinkedIn, you see on social media, you know, people that have already gone through the program. So reach out and plug them, you know, ask them what to expect. And, you know, one of my goals, my personal goal with a lot of these platforms, the office hours and the transition and our newsletter, is to put you all in the best position as possible to get selected for, whether it's veterans and residents, whether it's a pitch competition. You know, we just want to make sure that you're prepared. And so we're doing our best. And again, unfortunately, everyone's not going to get selected. But if you follow the advice that we're giving you on these platforms, you'll be in a better position than you would be if you don't take the advice. So one of the things that we're doing today is we're going to be talking about brand strategy. And I was able to get Carrie to jump on here with me. You know, she doesn't like to be on camera all the time. Usually she's back behind the scenes in the comments. But, I think it's an important, this is an important topic, right? Especially now as there's a lot of people transitioning to the online space where there's just so much noise. Yeah, Ann Cardone's in the chat saying she's good to hear us chatting about VIR. But going back to brand strategy, there's a lot of noise online, right? We were just complaining about how many of y'all get people calling your phone all day from these spam calls, or get the random LinkedIn message, or get the random email campaign, right? And so unfortunately, for those that are tuning in, we see a lot of this stuff that other people are doing, and we think that we have to do it ourselves, right? And the reality is that that's not the case. Your marketing and branding efforts and everything that you're doing needs to be tied to a concise brand strategy. I have my own brand strategy framework, which I call dog whistle branding. But today we're going to talk a little bit about it, to how to set you guys up for success. And one of the reasons I wanted Carrie to come on here with me is because she runs social media. She's in charge of Bunker Lab social media. She has her own company. So she's seen what happens when people don't have a clear and concise brand strategy, and they're just spraying and praying all over the internet. And that's not what we want to have happen. So one of the first things I like to start out with when we talk about branding is, like, at your core, what is your why? You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? What motivates you to do it? For me, I have a nonprofit here in Newark called Ironbound Boxing, where we build champions in and out of the ring. That is our why. We serve youth and young adults. So any decision we make is tied to that. And for you, right? And one of the things people make the mistake of, you need to have your own, like, personal why of, like, oh, I'm going to get up and this is why I do. This is why I'm really passionate about it. But when you start to build a venture that's bigger than you, right? This needs to be a why that your team can rally around as well, because they're going to be the ones that are going to carry it when you're not in the room. And so sometimes, we can tie our why to, like, a financial value. Like, I can tell Carrie, like, my why is I want to be a millionaire, right? But if it's just me and Carrie on our little agency or whatever, like, does that motivate her? Is she really motivated to make me a millionaire? Or is she motivated to, build champions in and out of the ring for youth and young adults? Or is she motivated to make her city better, right? So these are the kind of things that you need to think about. And then the next thing you want to do is, like, how are we conveying this why within our external branding? So a lot of times we focus on, the core values and the bold beliefs and all this stuff, but then we do it on our documents, like our internal document. It's like, what's example, Carrie, of, like, you see the honor, courage, and commitment in the military, or people do this. We do the whiteboard session and we come up with our core values. Nobody ever sees it.
Nope.
It's like, why aren't we putting this on our website? Why aren't we putting this on our proposal? What have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, no, I think often that we segment our internal communications with our external communications, which is a good thing, but we need to make sure that whatever we're saying internally about the why and what we're doing and why we are a business and why we're helping those that we're helping, that must also be outward facing as well. And we at Bunker Labs have embraced the Storybrand Framework, which goes through a lot of that. And, like, who is our hero? Who are we trying to make the hero? What is it that our customer really needs that we can provide? And so that's something that we've got to make sure that message is clear on our website. It's clear on our social media channels. It's clear when we send out an email or a newsletter. And so it's part of that is, talking internally and figuring out, how do we want to portray this and what resonates with our audience. But it also ties back to knowing who your audience is, which we know is a huge thing with the brand strategy, and really doing a deep dive into the market research, really doing those focus groups, understand what are the needs of your potential customers, and then how can you meet them and fulfill those needs that they have. And so doing a lot of that homework on the front end makes, having your brand strategy and your outward facing marketing and initiative, it makes that much clearer and much easier.
So I want y'all to think about something, right? I want you to think of your brand as a dog whistle. And every time you blow on that brand, every time you post, you do a podcast, you record a video or something, that is a whistle that you're blowing on. And whose attention are you trying to get? You're not trying to get everybody's attention. You're trying to get the attention of your perfect customer. You're trying to get the attention of your perfect audience, okay? And so we've got to make it extremely easy for them to find us. And you can't do that if you don't jump out there and dial, if you don't take the time to dial in who you are, what you represent, etc. Now, as we're talking through this, we want engagement from you all as our audience. So make sure that you're commenting in the chat, even if it's specific questions about your own venture and your own brand strategy. All right, the next thing, and Carrie talked about, is like, who are you talking to? I want you to think about your smallest viable audience. And I love Seth Godin, right? Seth Godin's got this book, This Is Marketing, and he has a whole chapter 4, where he talks about the importance of finding your smallest viable audience. We're all afraid to niche down. You know, we always feel like we're leaving money on the table because we got to go after this, we got to go after that. But the reality of it is, when you're starting out, most of the time you have an audience of one, and that's you. Maybe you got 3, it's your cousin, your mom and dad, whatever, but that's fine, right? That's your smallest viable audience. And so I want you to think about your venture, right? Think about it like this. If you were to start a newsletter tomorrow, who are the first 3 people that would sign up for that newsletter? Or if you started a podcast, who are the first 3 people that will listen? Now you can look at that and say, what am I going to do with 3 people? But the nice thing about it is it lets you focus, right? So you know, without a doubt, you have a product or a service that can benefit these 3 people, right? And you have some kind of unfair advantage within that niche group. For us on the transition, on the office hours and the transition, who is our smallest viable audience? Those within the Bunker Lab ecosystem, our veterans and residents, our workshop series participants, our CEO circle, right? When we're creating content, we can go right after that just to get started and gain traction, instead of trying to go after this broader veteran ecosystem of entrepreneurs. Where do we post? Where are we running this series? We're running on the Bunker Labs account. Why? Because we know we have people that are already subscribed to that. The nice thing about that is it allows you to build some small wins to get a little bit of traction. And it also lets you get feedback from your audience, right? And that's the biggest thing I want you to think about, is that we don't want y'all overwhelmed, right? We want you to start to gain some traction with the smallest audience that you know you can reach out and touch. Carrie, how many times have you seen people brief and they're like, oh, this is our total addressable market. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But it's like, you don't even have any paid clients yet. You don't even have an audience.
Right. And their audience, they think that their product or service is great for everyone, which is great for everyone. It's great for no one. And I do want to just reiterate the importance of finding that niche market there, because that really is the people that you're trying to attract and bring in. And niche markets grow, and so if you can get in early and you've got something they really need, that's a springboard for your company to grow even further. So don't be afraid to find that very small audience that you were looking to help for.
Once you know who that audience is and where to find them, the next thing you got to figure out is, what's your message to that audience? And I know, Carrie, like you said, you're a big fan of Donald Miller and Storybrand. I am as well. But it's like, yo, when you don't niche down, especially early on, you can go right over their heads and they can walk right by you. So how do we, Carrie, how do we craft a message to that audience that speaks directly to them?
Yeah, I think a lot of that too is just understanding who that target audience is. And that is through, very focused groups, chatting with your potential clients to see what it is that they actually need and how can your service or your product fulfill that need that they have. And making sure that that communication is open, and that feedback loop is very important. Whether that be scan a QR code, open to a form, send a thank you email after they have filled out that feedback form, or having in-person focus groups to really understand the needs of your clients. And I think a lot of, especially small business, they bypass this step because it seems really cumbersome, but it's easy. I mean, people want to give feedback if you ask for it. People want to express their opinions. And so, the first thing you do is ask, because people won't ever tell you if you don't ask. So just, putting yourself out there and saying, hey, how can I make this better? Or how can this be something that you could use and you find important? So just putting the ask out there.
One of the things I see in this ecosystem now is because of the small business and startup, 2 different strategies, 2 different approach, right? One is going into debt, they're raising capital, etc. A lot of y'all out there might be bootstrapping. And when it comes to how we name our ventures, right? Like if you're a startup, and you name your company, I don't know, Fundly, right? I have no idea what Fundly is, but I know I'm going to raise some capital. We're going to really do some thought leadership, and we're going to push it out there so people understand what Fundly is. And it could be some kind of app that does whatever. If you're a small business and you're, let's say, an auto mechanic or something, don't call your company Fundly.
No.
You know, nobody's gonna know, right? We need to know like how can we use buzzwords in our branding, right? In our description, so it's easy. Like I'm in Newark, New Jersey, right? And if I have a flat tire on the side of the road and I go into Google, flat tire, Newark, New Jersey, and the first thing that pops up is we change flat tires in Newark, New Jersey, Newark Tire Company or Newark Road Assistance or something like that, right? Those little buzzwords. And for us as veterans, right, let's be honest, we like to do business with other veterans because they know us. That's an unfair advantage. Somebody else can't just jump in there. So if you service veteran-owned businesses, don't be afraid to use that buzzwords. You know, maybe you service veteran-owned startups, right? Use the word startups. You know, maybe you service growth stage veteran-owned businesses. So use the kind of buzzwords that really can attract your ideal audience. And I think what I see, Kay, I think sometimes people are just afraid to do it. We're afraid to niche down.
Yeah. And I there are some tools that are free that individuals can use to start understanding, what are the keywords that they should use. Google Trends is a great one. If you've got a word that you would like to use, pop it in there, see what the trends are like, with the search, both regional and nationwide, to see if that would be a good buzzword for you to use, in your copy. And I think a lot of people, they want to be a little more, I don't want to say esoteric because that's not the right word. They want to not be super specific in how they name something. But like you said, if you're looking for a flat tire repair, you're not going to look for some Latin name for flat tire. You're looking for the actual word. And so making sure that you're matching up the service that you have with the keywords or the words people will search for when they're looking for your product, that's a really important intersection. And again, that goes back to doing your market research to understand how is it that someone will search for your product or service? What are these actual words that they will type in the search engine to then get your information?
The next thing you got to figure out is what medium are you using to reach this target market, to reach that smallest viable market? And this is one of the things we see, right? When you're starting out, right? We don't have the budget of Coca-Cola. You're not Coca-Cola, right? You're not Nike. You're not all these big brands. And sometimes you try to see people try to do what they do, shoot the nice high quality videos, post it here, post it everywhere. And you see a lot of these brands and it's like, man, they have this really strong brand presence. They got the Instagram going. They got the LinkedIn going. They're on Facebook. They're on that. When you're starting out in an early and growth stage, you need to focus on like one medium that you can dominate really, really well. But you got to tie that medium to the persona of that perfect customer, to the persona of that market. One of the things that's big now is the Facebook groups, Carrie, because I know people can go in there and they can build community, etc. But there's a whole group of people that don't want anything to do with Facebook because it's just like, so for some people, it can be a lot of noise. You don't know your target demographic because you're not plugged in to their needs. You can spend your time posting and funneling your content marketing efforts or your brand efforts in one place, and it's just not getting any attention. It's like if a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it or sees it, doesn't make a sound.
Yeah. And I think that one thing, and this ties back to our Veterans and Residents program that we have, one thing that I would encourage everyone, veteran or not veteran, but if you are starting a business, LinkedIn is where you need to be, and making sure that you have at least your personal profile on LinkedIn. And then if it makes sense, have your company profile on there as well. And that's something that the general business world does a lot of, but I think sometimes in the veteran community, they don't quite understand the importance of LinkedIn and how much that community can help you build not only your audience, but your brand as well. And so LinkedIn, I would say, is always a good channel for companies to start off on, and then figuring out, is it Twitter? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it TikTok? Whatever it may be. And a lot of that also boils down to not only what your target audience wants, but what you are generally interested in. Because if you don't care about Twitter, then that's going to be a hard platform for you to engage on if it's not something that's built into your everyday life. If you're one that likes to document and you like taking pictures and you've got an actual physical product, Instagram is probably a good fit for not only you, but for your brand and for your audience. So figuring out, finding that intersection between what you enjoy and how you enjoy engaging with your clients, and then how they're going to also engage with you, the intersection of those social channels is really important.
Yeah, I mean, look at us on this live series, right? Like, I enjoy live content, I enjoy audio content. So when I was looking at, okay, how do we promote the Transition podcast, right? How do we get awareness about it? I could spray and pray and put stuff all over everywhere, but like, hey, we're on Instagram, right? We're promoting it on our LinkedIn. We're doing a live series, and we got the newsletter. And then what we're going to be able to see, though, is that like, hey, what's working, what's not working, you know? And then we can make a decision of like, hey, do we want to pull it from that platform and focus all our attention on marketing here? Now, here's another thing I want to say too, because while I agree with Carrie, she's right about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great platform, just in a sense of it really lets other veterans know who you are, what you got going on, and how we can help support you, tagging each other, etc. But there's this concept I want y'all to think about called digital natives, right? So there's this whole generation of people whose whole experience is here. You know, like for us, right? We didn't necessarily grow up with the iPhone in our hand, etc. We had like dial-up Wi-Fi. Some of you old timers out there, you didn't even have internet. I don't know what y'all had. You know, y'all were playing passing knowledge in the cup, you know, tied to a string, right? But think about a digital native. Their experience with a brand, their first interaction is digital, right? And some of us tote that line. So I know when I'm getting ready to go out to eat and I look up a restaurant or something for the first time, right? I look in Instagram and I just want to see what the food looks like, you know? And if the food looks raggedy on Instagram, I'm like, I don't know, right? But that's somebody, the brands that win in that, they understand their persona of that perfect customer, right? So they might not necessarily be posting all their food on LinkedIn. They're posting their food on Instagram, on Yelp, on all this other stuff, because they know that like that's where their customers spend their time, right? So when you're going with that brand strategy, what we're talking about is like, you need to understand where your persona of your customer, where they spending their time, where are they going for information, right? That way you're not just posting a bunch of stuff on, I don't know what's TikTok or whatever, but it's like, hey, I'm looking for food. Like I'm going in Google search right now and I want to see the plate of food that I'm about to get. I want to see what pineapple fried rice looks like. You know what I'm saying? So once you know that, you take pictures of it and then boom, you're focusing your content. And the last thing I want to talk about is, how do you increase that customer lifetime value? You know, so once they do engage you on your platform, all right, and they're following you, how do we, it's the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, you know? And we spend all this time, Carrie, all this time, energy, and money, you know, trying to get access to these clients, trying to get them to find us. Boom, they find us. Now, what are we doing to keep them there?
Right.
What have you seen work?
Yeah, I think a lot of that boils down to engagement, and that's something that we're seeing, especially across the social channels, that it's not just about how many people you have that follow you. It's about, what does that engagement rate look like? And so, you know, are people, you know, liking your content? Are they adding comments to that? Are they asking questions? Are they sending, you know, direct messages? So having that engagement on those digital platforms now is the currency that we're playing in. And that really is that transparency. That's that feedback loop. That's asking the questions on our social media channels as well, of like, what's working, what's not working. Asking individuals to post pictures, whether it be, you know, food or whatever product that they may have as well, getting that user generated content that you can then reshare. And so, you know, having that engagement piece is similar to, you know, the Facebook groups. That's why some of those have gotten so big, is there is a lot of that engagement happening on them. That's why we see that on a lot of the LinkedIn groups, you know, there's not a lot of engagement there for whatever reason. And so you can find where your audience is engaging and making sure that you join them where they are, which, Mike, I know between me and you, we've talked a lot about that, of like finding your audience where they are and immersing yourself in that. So that might be Reddit, that might be Instagram, you know, that might be TikTok, that might be a Facebook group. But really making sure that you help contribute and solicit questions for more of that engagement with your client.
And I want to say this too, because you brought up a good point. I'm going through this online writing course now called Ship 30 for 30. And one of the things that I learned, I was not aware of, your ROI, right? If you have a small audience, if you don't have a very big audience, right? Your ROI isn't clicks. It's not all this kind of stuff. It's engagement, right? So if you only have 3 people subscribe to your newsletter, are they replying? You know, are they engaged, right? When we have our little live series on here, you guys asking questions, right? That's the real ROI on that kind of stuff, right? So again, don't get caught up in the vanity metrics because you're not a big brand, right? Like if you're Coca-Cola or whatever, clicks, they could probably care less about overall engagement. But if you're small, engagement is super important. So that's what you're going for. You're trying to go for these intimate settings, building relationships with your audience, building relationships because that's going to be your brand. People are going to talk about your brand when you're not in the room. And that's what we're going for. So as we wrap up real quick, I just want to go back over what we talked about today. The first thing you need to know is when you're developing your brand strategy is what is your why? What motivates you? What drives you? And more importantly, is this inspirational for your team? Because it's not just you personally. This is your venture. The next thing is, how are you communicating that why? Where are you putting it at? Are you putting your core values and your bold beliefs and all that kind of stuff on your website, right? Are you talking about it openly? If you were to call on somebody from your team and say, hey, what's our why? Is it the same answer you would have? Next thing is, what's your smallest viable market? If you were to launch something today, a newsletter, a podcast, your venture, okay, who are the first 3 people that would sign up that you know without a doubt? Because sometimes we got to start small to think big. Next thing is, what is your message to that target market? Are you confusing them, right? Are you making it extremely clear that this is who you are, this is how you can help them? And are you able to convey that in a one-liner of some sort, super easy on your website, and even how you name your venture? Next thing is, what medium are you using to reach that target market, right? Have you thought about where they spend their time? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? Is it live events? Is it meetups? You know, really start to put yourself in their head. And then the last thing is, how are you increasing that lifetime value? So if you're spending all this time, energy, and resources to go get somebody in your ecosystem, what are you doing to keep them there? Now, we're going to wrap up, but I do want to take time to answer this question. Xavier Lopez says, developing your brand strategy. What is your why? Know your audience. Oh, dang. He put the notes for us. I appreciate that, Xavier. Thank you. So people are asking, hey, where's the video for this stuff? I think y'all really appreciate this content. I put out an entire podcast series, a dang near audio masterclass on how to build a brand on the Transition Podcast. So check that podcast out. Then what I'm also going to do is on the newsletter, the Transition newsletter we created for Substack, right? We're pushing out a lot of content. All right. And so what I'll do is, Mike, one of the goals I've talked to Carrie about is, you know, getting some kind of blog post or whatever PDF of how to build your brand that we can get there out there to you all. Because what we went over today is brand strategy. So more about positioning, etc. There's a whole other component of brand strategy, which is building the foundation of your brand, which you heard me reference, core values, the bold beliefs, you know, your brand guarantee. And I cover all of that over in the podcast series, but I can do it here on this as well. Just for the sake of today, I want to get y'all out in the fight and get you some content that you can actually leverage. So make sure you subscribe to the Transition Podcast and newsletter on Substack, and we'll be sure to include that in the notes. Also, I got to go ahead and give my book recommendation for the week. And the book recommendation this week is Traversing the Traction Gap by Bruce Cleveland. And this is mainly for startups, but I do think there's a lot of lessons that small businesses can learn in this. And the big thing he references is, you know, we have our slide deck, Carrie. We're like, oh, we're going to be $1 million company, you know, and we come up with the business model and we come up with our go-to market strategy. And that sounds good, but it's like, how, Sway? Like, you know, like, how are you going to go from X to Z? And one of the things that Traction Gap talks about, the same thing Play Bigger talks about, is you need to become what we call a category king. The old way of doing stuff was you create a product, then you go find a market for that product or service. The new model is build the market first through thought leadership, articles, really helping people see the problem, and then you create a product for that market. So build the market first, right? And he talks to you about how to do that, and I can talk to you about how to do that as well. And then you use the product to service that market. So check it out. Traversing the Traction Gap, Blue Cleveland from Wildcat Ventures. Had a chance to meet him in person at a Bunker Brew out in California, the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. So it was super dope. And make sure you check that out. I'm going to sprint because I want to close this out here. So if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to Transition Podcast and newsletter on Substack at the link below. I release a newsletter every Tuesday and Thursday, and you can leave a comment about each episode. And if you have any questions about your own venture, be sure to post them there as well. We're always looking for content ideas, and we learn to love about what y'all are struggling with in your own ventures. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors, our virtual sponsors for today, which include the MetLife Foundation and the Gannett Foundation. The MetLife Foundation is committed to supporting veterans and military spouse entrepreneurs. In addition, the foundation also provides mentorship and financial health resources to veterans and military spouses transitioning into the workforce. A Community Thrives is a program funded by the Gannett Foundation and is part of the USA Today network, which invests in community building initiatives across the country with the goal of creating positive change through service to historically marginalized or under-resourced groups. If you haven't joined the Bunker Lab ecosystem yet, be sure to head over to bunkerlabs.org, sign up for the newsletter, and attend one of our networking events. It's that simple. From there, you'll get connected at Bunker Online, our social network for the Military Connect community. Just click connect at bunkerlabs.org and go from there. Mike Gothy wants to know what's the book recommendation again. Traversing the Traction Gap by Bruce Cleveland, and we'll post it in the chat as well. Until next time, everyone, appreciate y'all for tuning in. Carrie, any final words?
I don't think so. No, we're always available. Reach out to us on LinkedIn if you have any questions about this. And for those that are interested in the Veterans Resident Program, applications open in about 2 weeks. And so look that over. We will have a Q&A about that soon, so you can ask any of your questions then. We hope to see you live next week.
See you all, everyone. Bye.